Hi, I'm Marcus Hutzel. And if you're looking to get into audio streaming, audio recording, if you're trying to get an XLR style microphone into your computer for better audio quality for your virtual meetings, or even plugging in your acoustic or electric guitar to record some music, you're going to need a way to get those signals into your computer, and you'll need to do that with some sort of USB audio interface. And there are a ton of different options out there, but this is probably the best value interface you can get, the Behringer UM2. If you're new to audio, streaming, recording, or just new to trying to connect all this stuff to your computer and don't know what this is or why you might need one, well, the UM2 is a USB audio interface, and it connects to your computer via USB cable and allows you to plug microphones and some electric instruments into it and get those signals into your computer, and it allows your computer to send audio back out to this device so you can listen through headphones or hook up speakers to the UM2 and listen that way. Now, there are endless models of USB audio interfaces. Some of the primary competitors to this model being the Scarlett Solo, perhaps the M-Audio M-Track Solo. There are way too many options to mention, but I really think the Behringer UM2 is the best value interface to get if you're just starting out because it's relatively simple and it's one of the least expensive models for around $45 to $50. So I think the price makes it affordable to almost anyone new to this market, and you're still getting a really good interface for the money. And this isn't a new product, it's been out for a while, but I own one and I use it almost daily, so I just thought I'd let you know and talk about it a little bit. The UM2 and many USB audio interfaces in this range are definitely geared towards beginners and hobbyists and those on a tighter budget, but don't let that deter you from this model. Behringer makes some pretty great audio interfaces and other professional audio gear, and this one's no different. It's just smaller, has the least amount of inputs and features, but most of the time it's just fine for basic recording, streaming, or virtual meetings. Again, as I said, I own and I use one almost daily in my office at work with an inexpensive shotgun mic, and I use this setup for almost all of my virtual meetings in that space, and it works great and does exactly what I need it to. And I'm coming at this as not just an audiophile and techie and someone talking about products on YouTube, but as someone who's been in the live events industry for over 17 years and someone who almost daily uses this specific device, many of them in my professional work for live streams to get audio from an audio mixer over into a computer. Use these all the time. They're great, they're inexpensive, and I just thought I'd talk about it since it's something I literally use just about every day. So the main reason you need a USB interface like this, and its primary feature, for me, is that it has an XLR combo input, which lets you plug a standard dynamic or condenser microphone into it and get that signal into your computer. Something like a Shure SM58, or any other standard condenser mic as well, as this unit also provides 48-volt phantom power. These audio signals from our microphone, of course, can then be used to record into any audio program, or you can feed this audio signal into your virtual meeting platform like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, etc. But of course, this type of USB audio interface requires that you have an XLR microphone already that you want to use. This device is not, nor does it include a microphone, so you'll need to provide your own. And if you play an electric guitar or an acoustic electric guitar with an electric pickup and a 1/4-inch output, then you can plug your guitar directly into input 2 and your mic into input 1 and record those two audio signals into a multi-track software like Apple GarageBand or Adobe Audition for recording music. So if you're looking to record some music with your guitar, or if you have an XLR microphone and want to get that signal into your computer for better audio for recordings or virtual meetings, this is a decent little audio interface to get you started. So that's kind of what this is, or what any of these style USB audio interfaces are and do, and why you might need one. But let's go over the main features real quick of the UM2. Again, the UM2 has a single XLR, or actually a TRS combo input, which allows either an XLR or a 1/4-inch cable to be plugged into it, but of course, not at the same time. Input 1 is a bit of a smart input in that if you're using an XLR cable, it's expecting a lower level mic signal, and if you're using a 1/4-inch cable into input 1, it's expecting a hotter line level signal, and it will automatically pad or reduce the level of the signal on the 1/4-inch portion of the input by about 20 dB, allowing you to run hotter signals into input 1. So if you're using a microphone, use an XLR cable. And if you're feeding a signal from another audio mixer or other line level audio sources that maybe have hotter outputs, then use a 1/4-inch cable into input 1. And input 1 has its own gain knob on top to adjust the input gain of your signal. It has a second input, which is 1/4-inch only, And it's a high impedance input. And what that means is that it's really meant to plug in something like an electric guitar or an electric acoustic guitar directly into it and record your instruments that way. Because electric and electric acoustic guitar outputs have different voltages. And more importantly, the preamp on input 2 has a much higher impedance and will just affect your signal differently than input 1. So you really only want to use input 2 for something like plugging in a guitar directly. And of course, this second input also has its own gain knob on top. Either input will accept balanced or unbalanced signals, and UM2 can provide 48 volt phantom power to input 1 via the switch on the back, which will then power any condenser microphone if plugged into the XLR input on input 1. It has its own 1/4-inch headphone output on the front. It has stereo RCA outputs on the back, which can feed something like a set of speakers directly. So this device can also be your volume control for your main speakers at your desk. Just keep in mind that the output knob controls both the volume of the headphone jack and the RCA outputs at the same time. There's no separate control for just the headphone output. As a plus, if you're on an Apple computer, there's no special software or drivers to install. It will work with any audio software as soon as you plug it in, as long as you select it as your input or output source. For Windows, you'll have to perform an additional step of installing a driver, but once that's done, you're good to go. And for me, that's just another plus of using Apple computers, no drivers to install. It's powered over USB from your computer, so it doesn't need an external power supply. It's pretty much all plastic, and that makes it very lightweight, but possibly not as roadworthy or durable as some other brands or models. Both input 1 and input 2 show up as separate inputs in audio recording software like Adobe Audition, Apple Logic, GarageBand, or any other recording software. So you can do a 2-track multi-track recording using recording software. Again, like playing guitar and singing at the same time. Those 2 tracks will show up differently in your recording software so you can mix them in post later. But when using the UM2 as an audio input into a meeting software like Zoom, Teams, Google Meets, it will just show up as a single audio input labeled USB audio codec. And the audio that goes into that meeting will be a mix of inputs 1 and 2. So if you're only using input 1, then input 2 is effectively muted, and the meeting will just get audio from input 1. But this is also a way to maybe do an acoustic live stream into Zoom or Microsoft Teams, any of those others, by plugging your mic into input 1 and your guitar into input 2, all for about $50. Lastly, it has a direct monitor feature. And when this button is pressed, it will send the live inputs coming into input 1 and input 2 directly to both the headphone output as well as the RCA outputs. And this is important because when recording into a computer, the audio software that you're using, it can send your signal back to you, but it's going to be on a slight delay depending on your software settings because a computer has to process that audio and it takes time, and that can make your audio delayed coming back from the software. And hearing yourself on a delay can really mess with your speech or guitar strumming. So in that scenario, you would want to use the direct monitor feature to send the incoming audio from this device directly to the headphone output so you can hear yourself in real time if you're playing guitar or even just speaking. But remember, since the output knob sends the audio to the headphone jack as well as the RCA outputs, you may need to turn off or mute your speakers to avoid any feedback from your microphone. I use the direct monitor feature all the time when I'm on virtual meetings because I usually wear headphones for virtual meetings, like my Sony MDR7506s, and you have to make sure to use the UM2's headphone output and not plug the headphones into your laptop's headphone output. You need to use this output here on the Behringer UM2 for that direct monitor feature to work properly. And this allows me to hear myself in my headphones when I speak through the microphone that's plugged into the UM2. Because you may not think so, but we often need to hear our own voices a little bit when we're speaking. So wearing something like a big pair of headphones can mute my own voice to my own ears. Using the direct monitor feature allows me to hear myself with the microphone I have plugged in, and it just allows me to speak more easily when having a meeting. So for me, the UM2 is perfect if you just need to get a single microphone or maybe a microphone and a guitar into your computer for virtual meetings or recording. But my primary use of this interface is for getting my XLR shotgun mic into my computer for virtual meetings. It's a relatively basic USB audio interface, but it definitely gets the job done just as well as other more expensive models. Sometimes there's no reason to spend more money if something just suits your needs. Now, if you have a USB direct microphone, something like a Blue Yeti or Rode VideoMic NTG, or any of the other countless USB mics out there, then you probably don't need something like the Behringer UM2 because those microphones obviously connect directly to the computer and usually can't go through an additional audio interface. But even if you do have a USB microphone, you could still use the Behringer UM2 as an output device from your computer. Tell the computer to send audio out to the UM2 by selecting USB audio codec from the operating system's audio outputs, and then use this as your volume control for your speakers. It puts the volume control on a physical dial rather than using any of the keyboard keys or software or on-screen controls. And that can be helpful when your volume knob is right here in front of you. It's small, it's simple, it's lightweight, it takes one cable to connect it to your computer, and it's really hard to beat the price. It's usually about $50 on any given retailer's website or even in store, and that's about the cheapest you're going to get for a decent USB audio interface. But you still get a solidly performing audio interface that has an XLR mic input and an input for your guitar if you're looking to record some music. It's just hard to beat the UM2 for people just starting out, either recording simple voiceovers or some guitar and vocals, or just needing to get an XLR microphone into your computer and meeting up with colleagues in this virtual world. And I also use several UM2s in professional settings with my full-time production work. The UM2s were the main USB audio interface feeding clean audio to thousands of virtual attendees, and I never had any issues with any of the UM2s that we purchased. They've been really rock solid for my personal and professional meetings and for professional corporate virtual streams and events. And I think that's it. Just an overview and certainly my recommendation for a beginning, budget, and basically overall best value option USB audio interface with an XLR input. And it won't break the bank. Happy recording and streaming. Later.